the most famous detective in fiction is probably Sherlock Holmes, followed only by Mr. Batman, who will never know his identity. We're going to start off with a more modern adaptation, with the one, the only, Moriarty the Patriot. You see, Sherlock's most famous villain, also, he only appears twice in the books, because, you know, people saw him twice and they thought that is the cool villain, that's the good dude, we gotta love him. Here, we get a sympathetic villain. Moriarty, he's a poor orphan with his brother, and they, like, get into, like, some funny shenanigans. Sherlock appears time to time. He's not really the main character. He's kind of just, like, in the background, solving crimes every once in a while, but it's mainly about Moriarty, which makes sense by the funny title. Sherlock here is mainly to look after the funny BBC adaptation. I mean, they even use the term Mind Palace, which I've never heard in the books before. I'm pretty sure that was unique to the BBC movies. Our funny Patriot, Moriarty brothers, follows the most famous Professor Moriarty, and he is a professor, which is not really common for a lot of these adaptations. This is the only one he's like a genuine professor. Like, he goes around giving like speeches at schools and teaching people how to be, well, math and stuff. He's just professor of everything. And he gonna protect his sickly brother, Lewis. Well, he's like sickly for like the first part, and then he becomes an assassin. He's like the little like assassin for Moriarty. And then it follows their non-blood related brother, Albert, who is the only like true descendant of the Moriarty bloodline. The, you know, Lewis and Moriarty, they're, well, they're orphans. And he kind of like is like the noble guy. You know, he's the one who like gets in touch with nobles. He's their scout for like all nobility. While Moriarty is the genius behind the tactics, and Lewis just, you know, gets his hands dirty for Moriarty. Now, a big part of the show is that Moriarty sees issues with the lower class versus the upper class, and he wants to destroy this dynamic. Very, very based. They made him a hippie socialist. So, base Moriarty, you go, queen. You go destroy the queen. And that is kind of a plot point later on, is that he wants to destroy the monarchy. King shit. There's actually a scene where he tells this rich guy that all rich people are bad, and it is kind of based as a child. They also, like, as an adult, they made him, like, really fucking hot. I mean, look at him. Oh my god, he's so cute. Moriarty, the orphan, was brought into the Moriarty home because the Moriarty families were like, we gotta have a kid. We gotta, like, have an adopted orphan so we look good. And they sent Albert to do it, who was, like, 8. And, you know, he had just kind of like picked like the two smart kids because he thought that would be cool, and he kind of liked them. So we get to see William the professor gives us the classic Sherlock Holmes deductions throughout this beginning sequence where he like teaches people how to like, you know, help themselves out for the better. And he becomes what's known as a crime detective, where he gives people ideas on how to commit crimes and get away with it. He's adopted by them right after this, even after Albert knows he does this. Because he sees the, you know, the rich, you know, torment the poor people of town. He starts seeing them, like, beat them. And Albert's brother, whose name I forget, like, starts, like, stabbing maids with forks and stuff, you know, being, like, some sick, evil stuff. He's a bad guy. And, you know, after this backstory, every episode pretty much follows Moriarty like setting up a crime to help someone else take revenge out. For example, one of the early ones is that there's this guy who couldn't get his son a doctor. He went to his boss's place because he has got a doctor inside. His boss wouldn't let him. He helps him get revenge by killing the funny dude. And this is like the episode. It also gets really crazy later on because we get to meet Irene Adler, of course, Sherlock Holmes' love interest, and we get to see her become, spoilers, James Bond, and they like work for M. It gets really wacky and really crazy later on. This is the first one I watched for this video in my research. Lupin versus Sherlock. I thought this was gonna be Lupin the Third versus Sherlock Holmes. It's not. It's just Arsène Lupin, like the fictional character from the books. I know. Who would have thunk? Yeah, wow, that's actually literally what it says in my notes. I could only find the Spanish dub of this movie. I couldn't find the Japanese dub, not an English dub, the Spanish dub. And I don't speak a lick of Spanish, so I'm going off the YouTube subtitles. So hopefully these are accurate. I don't believe that in a heartbeat that they were, though. From what I was able to gather, a guy bought a lottery ticket and put into a desk, and this desk was stolen by Lupin. So this guy calls on Sherlock to investigate it. Sherlock, it looks kind of weird. He's blonde compared to his dark hair and blue eyes. He normally has gray hair. You know, he's calm and deliberate. He's just mad. Watson's just like seething this entire movie. He's just like always angry, getting upset over every little thing. There's a scene he's just angry about being in France. I mean, okay, he's British, so this actually makes complete sense. Then Sherlock begins investigating one of the, you know, this funny theft about a murder, and the French police blames from the first person they see, that being Sherlock tells the statue was the murder weapon, and you know, and that was too heavy for this lady to carry it. Sherlock is able to prove the lack of medicine is what got him killed. I don't know. The random auto-generated subtitles did not make this easy to follow, honestly. Though I must say, Watson's facial expressions in this movie, magnificent. Then this million franc ring, I don't know what a franc is, I'll be honest. I hope the subtitles are accurate. Has been swapped out with a fake one. Ooh. And the story follows Sherlock hunting down the gentleman thief. They have an epic battle on a boat, and by epic battle, I mean, he shoots Lupin. Lupin shoots the boat, and he runs away like a little bitch. This movie's not that well animated. It's kind of goofy. I mean, it is what it is. It is actually kind of similar to the first episode of the Sherlock BBC, where the final encounter is the villain posing as a taxi driver, because Lupin does the same thing. But then we learn that Holmes just is a master of judo and disguises himself as the funny lady's dad, and gets caught. But besides that, the funny lady whose name I forgot, I know I'm the best YouTuber ever. And Lupin gets away, and he reveals that this girl he was stealing from, he actually liked her. He just didn't like her dad, because no one can catch Lupin. It's a strange experience. It's very, very out there, and that could just be from the funny YouTube subtitles not making sense at all. It is an experience. Okay, so we're gonna move on now to probably the most famous anime adaptation of Sherlock, Sherlock Hound, the one where he's a dog, the one where it's furry bait. Now, we gotta know that everyone, of course, in this version is a dog, except for Moriarty, who is a wolf, which is fantastic. Now, to get you that hype, get you understanding, this was directed by the one, the only Hayao Miyazaki. You know, the guy who worked on Panda Gi Panda, of all things. Incredible work. I'm a big Panda Gi Panda fan. Now, this series was funded by the Italian government. Why? I could not find out why, but they funded it. They put a lot of money into this. And you can tell that they spent a lot of time on these detailed, beautiful machineries using the shots. There's an episode where Mrs. Hudson gets kidnapped, and she doesn't have a care in the world. It's such a joy. And then she's like vibing. She's having a great time of her life. And then the episode right after that, it has to go help out Sherlock Holmes with an investigation, because like one of her childhood best friends, who's a pilot, gets kidnapped, and she goes in and like starts like going like being a badass. She starts shooting down Moriarty's plane. She's being a badass. She's going pew pew blow. You know, it's kind of based. It's based as fuck. Oh, I love Mrs. Hudson in this series. I almost am a furry from watching this version. Almost. Good lord, am I not a furry? I say that like it's a bad thing. Wait, I'm not a furry. I swear. I'm not a furry, but something's real. The way he wags his tail, it's messing with how I feel. I'm not a furry, it's just his skills profound. Let's face it, I'm in love with Sherlock Hound. There we go. You get the funny, stupid-ass song segment that's gonna get me in trouble. Oh my god, I have been a foolish fool. I need to stream again. Wow. But yeah, but pretty much this is an episodic form made for kids show. Hayao Miyazaki stopped working on this after episode 6 because there was a funny lawsuit by the Sherlock household, and that got him to like not want to work on it anymore. So he decided to go work on Nazca. And you know, between Nazca and Sherlock Hound, I'm more of a Sherlock Hound girl. It's not because I'm a white girl. Okay. We're gonna leave the furry bit behind. We're gonna leave this and go on to something new, something different. We're going to the second furry version of Sherlock Holmes. The second animal version. The second time he's a dog. Yes, that's right. But this is a lot different version of Sherlock that I've seen. Also, Watson's a cat this time, which, banger. I love cat Sherlock. So, Sherlock Holmes and Watson are hunting down a gentleman thief, again, as they do. As they famously hunt down gentlemen thieves in their storylines, called the White Storm, who robbed an oil baron who became a loan shark. Pretty cringe. After the robbery, he's murdered, and Sherlock Holmes solves the case with Sherlock Holmes' magic powers by providing security guard who figured it out by telling him he killed him with a toy boat. The deduction scenes are pretty cute, and every time they appear, it's so stylized. I'm loving the stylization. Sherlock gets a lead by seeing cake left at the slums and decides that cake shop is where they're selling the cake. That's probably related to the funny gentleman thief. And some of the girls are like, damn, girl. Oh, I have 2 segments in this video where I call asking myself if I'm furry. I can't escape the scaly accusations. Miss Baker Dog, please. I am in love with you. Please marry me. I need you in my life. Also, this movie is in 3D, and it's beautiful. All from the fight scenes to the standard animation. I'm in love the entire time. My favorite part being this car chase scene at the end of the movie where Sherlock's chasing a car, and it goes with energetic movements, take it away, and Sherlock has to like think through multiple routes that makes most sense for him. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is such a good movie. Sherlock, though, does catch the White Storm, learning that he was giving away his money he stole from the evil rich guy and just helping the poor, being a hero of the slums. And he arrests Mac, aka the White Storm, on his daughter's birthday because, everything's got to be a Godfather reference, honestly. And it's sad. I cried a lot during this movie. I have feelings. I cry like a bitch. Sherlock's called heartless for, you know, arresting a man on his daughter's birthday in front of her. She's just a kid, like, damn. So our boy Mac goes to jail for 4 years, and he doesn't try to leave at all. And he learns that his daughter's getting married and is gonna be leaving London forever. So he does the only logical thing and breaks out of jail. So he starts a fight with the main villain of the movie Scarface, an ape, with a funny scar, and he decides to break out as well by forcing the doctor to take him to the hospital where he breaks out. And then they just have this cool athletic sequence down the mountain. Also, Sherlock Holmes and Watson have this cute relationship to mirror Gorilla and Fox, who are like the, you know, the cop detectives that are kind of incompetent. But, like, I love that they mirror each other in this way. So they're kind of similar, but also kind of exact opposites. Listen, I'm not going to continue going through the plot of this movie. It's good. Also, this movie is not actually like an anime. It's a, you know, it's a Hong Kong production, but it's on Mal. So I'm going to use it to increase my funny Annie list size because, you know, I'm an otaku and the only thing I care about is knowing that my Annie list is bigger than someone else's anime list. I know this is a number that means nothing, and if I really wanted to go up, I would just have to watch more music videos, and then I would artificially inflate my list. That way I could say I'm a better otaku for having watched more things. Fear the one girl who's watched 1,000 music video episodes. Who's the bigger otaku now? Twitter. The fuck am I even talking about? Also, this movie sets up a sequel that doesn't exist, and I'm fucking upset that it doesn't exist, because this is honestly, I'm saying this right now, this is the best Sherlock Holmes movie I've seen. Like, this is genuinely my favorite adaptation of Sherlock Holmes ever. Almost, it's better than some of the books in my eyes. This is my favorite version. I don't think there's a version that is more energetic and fun, that has fun detective sequences, because a lot of these things don't really do the cool detective moments where Sherlock is like explaining stuff. That's my favorite part of Sherlock Holmes, is where you like detectives it. So we're gonna move on to the exact opposite of this. Not that it's bad, it's just different, Chad. It's just different. Have y'all ever heard of a movie called Corpse Empire? Thought not. Okay, so imagine a world, Frankenstein exists. He created the monster, not the monster Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein's the guy. Victor Frankenstein's the guy. The monster, well, I guess Dr. Frankenstein's the monster, and the monster he creates is not the monster. You know what I'm talking about. You get it. You've seen the funny analysis on it. He created the monster, and he did the resurrection. And so now, but Frankenstein died. And the world is now like, we're in a post-zombie empire, where we can like resurrect corpses. But they're not all like his creation. They all are dumb. They can only follow instructions. They're kind of like pseudo-computers in a way. Now, these creatures, everyone's been trying to create the one, like Frankenstein. They want to get their hands on his notes so they can create more intelligent people. Because right now what they're using for all these corpses, and why it's called Corpse Empire, is because this is what powers pretty much all lower-class jobs are taken over by effectively these zombie corpses, robot things. They handle, you know, just doing call transfers. They handle, you know, basic labor. A lot of like low-level entry jobs are doing that. And our main character, Dr. John Watson, Sherlock Holmes is not in this movie until like the end credit scene. So no Sherlock Holmes in this Sherlock Holmes movie, but I watched this movie, damn it. So we're gonna talk about it. So follows John Watson taking around his buddy Friday, spoilers, who's really James Bond. Yeah, that's right. There's 2 different James Bond who are 2 separate people in this video series. I don't know why James Bond has appeared twice, but I kind of love that James Bond has a weird connection to Sherlock Holmes. So James Bond and Dr. Watson are pretty much going on this quest to figure out how to create the one. That's the entire point. They hang out with, you know, some funny people like Halliday Lilith, the U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant, Nikolai. I don't know who Nikolai is, but they're on a mission by M to do this entire thing because, you know, M of the British government wants to get his hands on the Frankenstein's notes so they can, you know, could make more powerful zombies for the British government. I don't really know what M's end goal is. It gets really messy in the second half of this movie. It really plays into this idea of like, man, an empire ruled by corpses would kind of suck because throughout the movie, it's constantly shown that everyone's surrounded by death, that people will sacrifice so much to get more uses out of a corpse that when someone passes, they're just seen as now another product in the machine. In a way, it's very cool aesthetically and emotionally. On the other hand, this movie gets really fucking wild, really weird. In the second half, Frankenstein's monster, the one, becomes the main villain. And then they kind of get bored of that, and then M becomes the main villain. And it's not a movie I recommend. A unless you really want to go on a wild journey. In the final cutscene, though, we get to see Sherlock Holmes solving crimes. So, that's where we get it. Oh, yeah, and Irene Adler, Halliday becomes Irene Adler later on. So, we get more characters becoming other people, because that's what we got to do. Am I going to explain the entire plot? No, you can watch it yourself. Somewhere, wherever it's legal to watch it. We got other movies to talk about, like Sherlock Holmes to watch in Hakase. So, okay, hear me out. I know we just said that it's not right to, buff up your anime list by watching music videos. So I did that. This is a music video that appeared on the NHK channel, Mina no Uta program. It's a show that airs, kind of short 5-minute, up to 5-minute long songs between shows. And this is just a cute little song about Sherlock Holmes arresting someone. It's a cute animation. I know, I think I spoke more about this than there is amount of time for the short. I am a analysis channel now. That's right. I'm going places. Okay, you can shoot me for that. That was a terrible joke. That wasn't even a joke. That was just bad. All right, we're moving on to Milky Holmes. Now, you might ask, what is a Milky Holmes? That sounds like a bad Sherlock Holmes version. Now, imagine a world, an eternal war between phantom thieves and private detectives. By the way, almost all of these have had a gentleman thief in them. If I'm correct, gentleman thieves don't exist in Sherlock Holmes books. They're just normal criminals. I don't know why there's this, war between the gentleman thief or a phantom thief and the private detectives. But this world is built on the idea that their society works around the idea that phantom thieves are so common that there are private detectives who hunt down these phantom thieves. There's a school dedicated to teaching people how to be private detectives to fight phantom thieves. The Japanese government is so fucked in this universe that they've resorted to private detectives, specifically private high school girls, to solve this mass crime wave going through Japan. Am I overthinking this? Yes, because it's so much cooler than if we actually do it. So this follows our main girls who are all overused lolly subtypes. There's leader girl, hungry girl, klutz girl. There's the girl who's far too nice, and their powers are powered by toys, really feeding into that lolly subtype. That's right, if you feel grossed out by this, you should. It's a little creepy. No, I mean, honestly, it's just kind of lolly coded. And if you're not into that, I'm not, it's a little cringe, honestly. So all of our characters, they lose the ability to use their powers. And so without their powers of being the Milky Holmes detectives, they kind of lose all their status in society. In their society, I mean their school, because they can't solve their crimes anymore. And they're going after the Lupin, the Moriarty gang, whoever the fuck the villains are, I forgot already. They go after the arson gang, as they are trying to hunt down the arson gang. And the arson gang kind of feels bad for them, so they infiltrate their school and just to be fake private detectives, and they just kind of berate them everywhere they go. But they're not even hiding their personalities, or their disguises aren't even disguises. So our detectives are really bad at detectiving. It's kind of cringe. Our cast who are supposed to be friends are just fighting every second of the day. They are not people who care about each other. They're just the worst group of people ever. So every time you watch this show, you're watching the dumbest detectives who can't solve any crimes, who aren't even good friends to each other. It is a painful experience. There's this one man who keeps taking off his shirt and screaming how beautiful he is, and it's made me want to doki doki myself every time I see him on screen. I assure you, he is the worst man I've ever seen in anime. And Arsen wants to continue to torment the Milky Gang, even though she won by her rivals losing their powers. I don't see why, what her goals are. This show feels cynical in nature, and everyone keeps calling the girls useless, and I mean, they are. They can't do anything without their powers. They are actually useless without it. This is genuinely one of the worst shows I've seen, or at least one of the more boring ones. Okay, so we all know that Detective Conan is one of the longer running shonen series. And of course, in the detective show, we gotta have the one where he goes to Baker Street. And if you're going to Baker Street, one of two things is gonna happen. We're either gonna see Jack the Ripper or Sherlock Holmes. In this movie, we get both of them. So, who's an adult named Jimmy? Yeah, I watched the dub for this movie because I've never watched Detective Conan. I'm not gonna look for the sub version of this. What do you take me for, a weeb? No, I'm just a VTuber. So, our boy Jimmy is going on this journey to play a video game, and he hates video games, you see. He's too coded into the real world. He can't spend his time wasting on games. But he learned there's a murder going on. He's got to solve this murder the only way he knows how, by going into video games and being a gamer. That's right. He hates SAO, but he's gonna SAO himself in. Because if you die in the game, you die in real life, yada yada, because you could probably solve it without going to the game. Because the guy who made the game put a massive hint in his game system. So I guess, the only thing we can do is go into the video game. As they're going through, they're gonna go to 221 Baker Street to meet Sherlock Holmes, and he's not there. We see a photo of him, and it's just Jimmy's dad. Because Jimmy's dad's a famous sci-fi, or is a famous mystery writer. So yeah, Sherlock Holmes doesn't even appear in this. Moving on. Case file number 221, Kabukicho. All right. Sherlock Holmes is in this one and is the main character. I know it's been a while, but we're back, baby. So this time it takes place in modern day Japan. And this Sherlock, because every Sherlock Holmes has to have a gimmick. Sometimes he's a furry. This time he's really into rakugo. Now, if you don't know what rakugo is, it's a form of traditional Japanese theater where a person kind of sits down and plays multiple characters and tells a story. It's their, sometimes comedy, sometimes horror. They like stand-up comedy, but they're not standing up, they're sitting down. It's a kind of a banger art form. I only saw it from Rakugo no Shinjo, which is a great show. And honestly, the gimmick runs itself very fast, explaining like his thesis on like a crime that happened. So you'll have him like, it's like, Sherlock, how did you know that Thomas down the street was the murderer? And Sherlock will be like, all right, let me get you down. And he like puts his jacket on, he gets on his knees, like, and then he goes like this goofy voice, be like, hey, how did you know that Thomas was the killer? And he'll go to this serious form like, well, you see, if you weren't such a dumbass, you'd know about like, and then he goes through all the evidence. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're so fucking stupid. And like, people get invested in this. People are like there to like watch him do the comedy of Rakugo. And like, there's like a lady in the background who's like almost always crying because there's something like really serious. It just takes away the tone of what's going on. I guess if you like that kind of level of stupidity, you might enjoy the vibes out of it, but this is how every single explanation of crime goes in the show. And I found it to be very tiresome by the end of my time watching the show. And because this takes place like in a town that's considered to be the outside part of Tokyo where all the weirdos live, it follows a gang of detectives who are all kind of like trying to like do mystery. So we get a lot of different detectives who are all kind of weird. There's a Moriarty figure who's, oh no, I guess Moriarty's probably gonna be a villain. And there's a few others. Strahd is there, because everyone loves Lestrade. He's the detective that works for the police normally, who's kind of like seen as like in other adaptations, kind of like an idiot. Here he's just genuinely competent. Also, we get to like Mrs. Hudson is a drag queen, and there's this group of trans girls, or at least drag queens as well. One of them is 100% a trans girl, like she's confirmed to be trans. And she's got like a distinct body type, and I kind of like that. I like that we get like these outcasts we see, like, trans people. I think that's a really cool thing to get out of like these kinds of shows, and it's always happy. It's something like Yakuza does to like as well, with the because there's like this area where like drag queens are, and there's like trans girls appear there as well. So it's always happy to see like these kind of things, even if they are like back characters who don't get a lot of attention. And I'm just happy we get decent side characters of trans people who aren't bad. Foreshadow. Now Watson's an outsider who's come in needing of help for a case. And he asks Sherlock Holmes to help him out, and Sherlock's like, sure, if you're my assistant. And Sherlock Holmes is just nice to him but nice by his standards. Like, he like lets him to his home, which he never normally does with people. He lets him help him out with his day-to-day life, which he normally doesn't. So he's nice by making him a personal servant. Throughout the 12 episodes, there's no explanation of what this case is, or why Watson does this, or why Sherlock Holmes likes him. They just kind of accept it and go forward. So a little annoying. The main story arc for the first arc of the show is we gotta find out who Jack the Ripper is, because there's a guy going around killing people who's Jack the Ripper. Okay. And throughout it, we kind of start hinting towards it. Like Watson starts putting it together in his head, like, oh, it's Moriarty. Moriarty has to be him. And they meet Irene Adler, and Irene Adler gets killed. And at this point, the only person who knows where she was Watson. It was Watson, Sherlock, and Moriarty. So he goes and he confronts Moriarty. It's like, I know you're Jack the Ripper. And he comes out and says, I'm Jack the Ripper. And then they go through and they arrest him. And they go do, and Sherlock's doing his whole detective thing. And he's been dating the cute trans girl. So it's like really tragic. Because like, oh man, we just had this cute little arc that Lestrade and the trans girl were being best friends. They were like in love. They were really cute. No, the trans girl turns out to be Jack the Ripper. And here's your warning, chat. If you don't like transphobia, I recommend you click off the video now. This is not going to be fun. I'm really sorry. This hurt me a lot. So our trans girl pretty much starts killing people because she's upset that she wasn't born a woman. And Maki, the Jack the Ripper character, has this mental breakdown. She kind of becomes your standard psychopath. And the reason this is an issue is this kind of plays into the old stereotype of the trans serial killer. Think of your Silence of the Lambs or your the Pet Detective series. And it's not a good look. It made me really depressed because This wasn't my favorite show when I was watching it. I was thinking it was a vibe. I was enjoying it. I thought it was okay. But this killed it for me. This felt blatantly transphobic, and it left such a strong bad taste in my mouth. This actually delayed this video by like a week because of how much I just didn't want to work on this video after seeing this. But I also want to talk about every Sherlock Holmes anime, and her breakdown is just cruel. It feels like a joke to the existence of trans people. That like Maki was never a woman, she was just pretending. And you can have a trans killer, you know? You can have a trans villain. I'm not saying you can't. The issue is that if your trans villain is a villain because they're trans, you wrote a shit villain. I'm not gonna write a villain because they're straight, you know? That's stupid. That's not good writing. That's pathetic. And it killed me for this series. I really want to get into this because I thought, you know, a modern day Sherlock Holmes isn't that weird, isn't that out there. And here we are. I'm just disappointed. I just expected more. And I didn't get more. I got the worst show I've seen in a long time. So yeah, I know, boring. I'm sorry. I didn't want to go down this route of like the whole transphobia angle on it. I'm trying to get away from the transphobia. I really am. I don't enjoy talking about this stuff. I don't like being depressed about it when I watch anime. I don't go out of my way to seek this kind of things. I know I made a video on the history of trans people, but like this one did not hit my radar at all. I did not see this one. So there you go. You get a little soapbox Lumia. I'm disappointed, actually. Most of these were kind of banger. I would recommend specifically the furry ones, and that's really it, honestly. Just watch the furry versions. Sherlock Hound, and if you enjoyed my funny video, subscribe and like. It helps the video out a lot more than you. Have a good day, chat. Love you!